Okay. I'm trying not to say all right at the beginning of every one.
What is your thing?
All right. All right, friends.
Welcome back. That's what you do too.
Welcome back to episode number 8.
And then I go, 8. And I repeat you. And then you say.
And then I say, it's called the N-word.
And then everybody goes, oh. That was
Why is Micro giggling so much?
way too casual of an intro for a very not casual.
Oh, you know, by the last one of the day, I get a lot more casual. So welcome back to episode number 8. Today we're going to be talking about the N-word.
Mm-hmm.
It's already uncomfortable, and I hope you're as excited as we are.
Awkward laughter. That's what's going to be coming.
It's going to be a lot of awkward laughter. So we're going to talk about the N-word today. A little bit about where it came from, how we feel about it, who can say it, why they can say it, and if it's okay to sing along in rap songs.
Oh, that was added on to the end. I like the agenda. I was like, okay. You were telling me what we're about to do, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's totally written here.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm here.
It's on the paper, so.
I'm present. I'm accounted for.
KJ, are you here?
Yeah.
Present.
Aquí.
Oh, see? Oh, we both can do this. There's a neighbor girl who will always say hola, and one day I said, ¿Cómo estás? And she looks at me and goes, that's all I've got.
Oh.
And so now we're like jokingly trying to like get her some more Spanish. Yeah. And the other day, I said, ¿Cómo estás? And she was like, and I was like, bien. And Greg goes, por supuesto. And I looked at him, he's like, I don't know, let's really screw her up. It's like this poor kid's gonna go to Mexico someday and be like, ¿Cómo estás? Por supuesto.
Por supuesto.
For those of you who don't speak Spanish, Google it.
Yeah.
It was funny.
It is funny. That's a good one. Actually, I'm gonna start saying that now too. Por supuesto. Like what?
And he did más o menos, and I was like, alright, that's a little closer. Anyways.
I like it.
Okay, so, the N-word.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about where it came from?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to get like too deep into it because I don't think that's
the most important
point.
Part
Yeah, the point of it. But basically, for the what did you say? The 3,000 level view.
30,000.
Oh, 30,000.
Way up there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, the 30,000 level view is that it was a derogatory word that was created during the way back days to basically verbally accost and also keep down the black people, right? And that word was used often with the deepest meaning of hatred. It was never really intended to like be a positive term.
Right.
And then for like history purposes, which I told you we could talk about like in another future podcast, like the Harlem Renaissance period, that word basically was taken back or was tried, right? We tried as a black community to take that word back and take kind of the negative like connotation to it and bring it to more of a positive light. And so it started to get used in like literature and like poems and songs and things, and it basically, we tried to like do a 180 with it and make it a term of endearment, so that it didn't have this kind of like hateful meaning behind it. So that's the 30,000 view.
I think the number one question from all white people is why can you say it and I can't?
Yeah.
And I have a lot more questions, but that is like the biggest, like from you, what does it mean to you when you hear a white person say that, and like why would you not want them to?
Yeah, and I think I like the way that you phrase that, like to me, right? Because that conversation, you need to have that with the people around you, because that conversation is going to be a little bit different for different people on how they're raised and whatnot. But me personally, I don't like it because it's so rooted, right? And it kind of goes back to, I mean, in the thing that I'll post or whatever, you guys can read up on it, but it's just human decency. Like the meaning has so much behind it, and it stemmed from such a place of hatred that it's a very emotional word. And it really doesn't matter what the word is, you shouldn't say it. If it makes people uncomfortable, the person around you, like if it stirs up some sort of negative emotion, you just shouldn't say it. So the kind of watered down reason is because of where it came from, right? I mean, you can attribute that to pretty much like any derogatory like verbiage about anybody. I mean, wetbacks, whatever, like chinks, right? Like a word's a word, and the word came from a place that was hurtful. So you have to respect the fact that if I know you didn't do it, but your lineage did, right? And your lineage forced that word upon mine, and so now here we are today. I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, and if I ask you not to say it, don't say it.
Right.
So don't say it.
So be a decent human being.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, for me, I don't think you should say it because, I mean, and again, I said I wasn't going to reference that thing, but it had a couple of points in it that really stood out. There's no nice way to say that. And it's always going to have the meaning that you think it's going to have, regardless of how you try to change your voice to say it.
Right.
However, well, I didn't say it like at you, or I didn't say it like, it's like, no, but you still said it. Like, doesn't matter. And we know what it means. So as long as it has that meaning behind it, like, you still said it.
Right. So from what I understand from it, it was a transition from the word Negro, and it got its negative version. I'll be honest, like, even the word Negro to me sometimes is like, I feel like it gets too close.
Sure.
And I can't even say that I really understand, like, what a Negro is.
Sure.
Like, is there any connection? Like, if you hear something like that, is it?
I can't, truthfully, I can't speak to that. I don't know enough about the origin of the word Negro. I know that Negro, like, I know a lot of people are proud of that word.
Yeah.
For many different reasons, because it has, like, its own kind of history behind it. I don't know enough about it to speak upon it. And, I mean, now that just kind of gave me something to think about, right?
Yeah.
And to the point of all black people out there, like, we don't all know everything, right? Like, I'm not a black history, major. I had the same education growing up as you do, but, like, this is those moments that I want people to take away and be like, I heard something, and, like, let's look into it together. So I promise you, I will look into that, and then I will be able to come back to you and go, well, here's what I learned.
Yeah, no,
But
I mean, I'm not expecting you to know anything more, because I just said I don't think I know where it comes from or what it really means, but that's, it seems like, or we know that black people, like you said, have tried to turn that word and, like, turn it into a more compassionate word within that community. And like, we do see a lot of, like, Negro power and that kind of stuff. And so it's always one of those, like, I don't know if I should be making the connection and leaving that word to you guys, or if I should be a part of that.
I think Negro is safe, again, contextually, right? Because if you take Negro and you're just, like, you're trying to say the N-word and you just, like, insert Negro, like, the vibe is still there. Like, we figured, you're just, like, it's a loophole, right? You took the back door into the house. Like, you're still trying to, whatever. But in, like, the Negro National Anthem, right? Like, there's a lot of things that, like, that the black community takes pride in that has the word Negro attached to it. So, contextually, that's what I mean. Like, if you're going to celebrate, then I'm fine with you saying Negro, because that's what it is. It's a celebration. But as soon as you turn that celebration into anything other than, then I don't personally want to hear it.
Sure. Yeah, it's, so the thing that we were reading through, one of the things we're looking at preparing for this, gave the example, and about the word bitches, and how it's a word that, two females together can call each other, my bitches, or like, haha, hang with my bitches. But as soon as, like, a man calls you a bitch, like, it feels different, and we understand it differently. And for me, that was probably the closest I got to clicking on, like, what this word means and why I should or shouldn't use it. Because, if some guy comes up to me and calls me a bitch, like, we're gonna have a problem. And if, I can't imagine a world you'd call me a bitch. You're a bitch.
Never.
But, it's not really a term I throw around very often.
Never,
but you can see where it has a more casual atmosphere within a safe space.
Yeah,
a safe
community
group. Exactly.
Yep.
And so, I don't know, I think that, like, had you ever thought of an example like that before? Like,
no, I hadn't. And like when I read that, I was like, that's actually kind of cool because I think it's a really good way for everybody to understand, right? Like, because, and I'm sure probably another one of your questions is like, well, how come black people can say it but we can't say it? And it's like, and I don't want to speak for white people, but the ones that I've had, you know, even just a little bit of conversation with, they go, why can I say it and you can say it to whoever? Because you're not a part of that community. Mm-hmm. And then, like, they get almost offended and they're like, well, that's not fair. It's like, you're not going to be a part of every community.
Right.
Men are not women, women are not men. Men have their own connections and whatever, and women have their own connections. So I actually like that a lot because it's a really easy way to explain that to someone and get them to kind of understand, right? And, like, you even have that as far as, like, nicknames, right? We can even get as simple as nicknames. Like I obviously call you Mo and refer to you as Mo, but, like, there's people in your life that you're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, don't call me that.
I had a boss try that once.
But that's what I mean. Like, and it's that. But what it is, it's that, but it's that on a lesser scale. And so it's like, I like that analogy because it's a really easy analogy for people to connect to, especially if you are a woman, because you're like, oh, okay. Right? So when you hear people be like, ma, right, you're like, oh, okay. Don't take offense to it. You're just not a part of that particular community. Right. Like, and that's okay because your community probably has slang and terminology and things that, like, you guys refer to each other as, but you'd be absolutely offended if someone else tried to, like, right? I mean, I've even had that too, where, like, my family calls me niche. I've had, like, friends that try to do it, and I'm like, don't do that. Like, I get very kind of like, no, absolutely not. Don't even fix it. It's not funny. Don't fix your mouth. Like, my family does that, right? So it's kind of like that, you know?
Yeah.
But
no, I like what you said about the nicknames. I think that's, because one of the things that example of the bitches talked about is how there's this resource or this post whenever we talks a lot about like the oppressor and the oppressee relationship, and so the bitches example still has that of the women being oppressed by men. And so I think that leaves out the void of like, how do men understand this example then? Like white men who are not often oppressed. And so the nickname is kind of an interesting, like, that community that you're just not a part of.
Yeah.
Like you think of like, you know, high schoolers on a football team, like they're gonna run around and be like, you know, go Panthers, like, oh, my Panthers. And like the minute like I come in, they're like, hey, my Panthers.
Well, like, who are you?
Like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not on this team.
Yep.
So that's a good light analogy, and you don't even think you need that oppressor-oppressee relationship to understand that sometimes, like, it just doesn't belong to you.
It doesn't. And that's a great, I love that. Like, it's like, the reason I really love, when we were talking, you know, we joke about Spanish and whatnot, one of the things I love about the language is that it's a language of possession, right? Like, the words are masculine or feminine. It's basically like, it's a connection between, the person doing the thing and the actual object itself. And you almost like when you form your sentences, you have to really think about like who's doing what and why are they doing it so that you can put it together. That's exactly what it is. It's a possession, right? So we could look at the word and not think of it as like this thing that everybody owns. If you could think of like, here's a handful of people that like, if you could take the word out of your mouth and put it in your hand and you could hand it to certain people, who would you hand it to? Right? Would you be comfortable receiving that word? Probably not. Right? You'd be like, oh, right? You're like, this isn't my word. You'd probably try to give it to someone else. So it's the same thing. So when it comes out of your mouth, think about it as a possession, right? It seems so simple because anybody can say it, but if you couldn't say it and you had to physically hold it, would you be comfortable holding it in your hand? And the answer for most people is probably not.
Right. Well, and what's interesting, it kind of it's crossed my mind a couple times the last few things you've said, is how, like, black people don't call white people that.
No.
Like, it is truly in this community, like, it is a black person to a black person, or, you know, a mixed or what have you. So
or you don't hear it often. And if you do hear it, like, if it is a black person to a white person, it is almost like, it's a term of endearment. It's like the highest compliment inside of that word.
You've been adopted.
And like it doesn't happen very often, but like, you'll hear it every once in a while, and obviously it just depends on who's comfortable enough saying it and how often they say it. But you do know it. If you are a white person and you've ever had a black person call you that, like, you're like, okay.
You're tight.
Yeah, you're like, okay. And you get this sense of like, you know, it's weird because I don't want to be like, I don't speak for that person, but you almost kind of feel like proud, like you're kind of like, you like made it. Right? But you still don't get to say it. Mm-hmm. But you made it.
Yeah, you don't get to call them that back. But, okay.
But you made it.
So, do you think that it has to do, like, do you think there's, like, a generational aspect to this? Like, have you heard your mom or your grandma or anybody say this? Or, like, I almost feel like it's a word that people kind of grow out of. Like, there's a phase in your life where you might use it a lot. Or not a lot, but more often. And then, I just don't feel like I hear a lot of old black people running around saying that.
I don't know. I don't... It's hard to say because I think I wouldn't necessarily even say, well, let me be careful. Yes, it's probably generational in some capacity, but I think it's also demographic. Like I think in what is the word I'm looking for? Geographic. I think it depends on where you are.
Sure.
Right? And like so like in Minnesota, for example, right, we have pretty clear lines as to like educated, not educated, affluent areas versus non. Mm-hmm. And obviously like the normal representation of it is in more of like your like low poverty, low income, right? Mm-hmm. But you also do hear it more in the younger generation. Mm-hmm. And I think that is just, it's their way of expressing themselves, not necessarily from like a historical standpoint. I don't think that when you're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, you don't really understand the meaning of the word. It's just a part of growing up, and it's like, it's your thing. It's like, it's your communities, it's your way to relate to the people around you, so you use it more. And I think like as you get older and you become a little bit more versed and educated in like the traditional meaning of it, you outgrow it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But then there's people that don't, so I don't want to speak for everybody. Yeah. And but in my experience, I've found that like the older I've gotten, the less I've heard it. Mm-hmm. I don't say it. I've never been one to say it. I don't really care for the word. It's a very like, I don't know. It stirs up a lot of emotion, and I'm kind of I try to be a practice what you preach person in the sense of like I don't want to hear it, so therefore why should I say it? Right. But I also completely understand the emotional tie to the word, and that bringing it back to like when we were trying to make it more of a positive term and affirmation, things like that. So I don't by any means judge anybody for using it. I just am not comfortable with the word, like the meaning of it and the emotions that it gives me. I haven't gotten a full grasp on them or been able to control them personally, so I just don't. Mm-hmm. That's kind of I don't know if I actually answered your question.
No, yeah, I think that was, it's a word that I'm like really rubbing my face a lot in this one because it's one of those like it's so hard. And I mean, like I said when we were kind of preparing for this, is like it's one that I can very easily relate to the white person. Shocker. That's kind of a weird thing. No way. And it can elicit such a strong response from black people that it's easy for me to instantly get defensive around this. And it's stupid because it's a word. Like I honestly, if you take this word out of the dictionary, it doesn't change my life because I already don't use it. But it's it's one of those like, why do you get to say it? Why can't I? Which we've talked about. And then it's like, we saw like, well, you can call me, cracker, or you can call me whatever. Like, what was that? Wigger was a word for a while. Like, I don't know if that still exists.
I don't know.
But so those are words that like, okay, you can call me those, and I don't care. Honestly, I saw that, and like, I do care. Like, I think anytime you call me any sort of name that's not my own,
I
take mild offense.
Yeah, you take offense for sure.
So I don't know, like, what as far as like other names and other things, like, how can we relate?
You can't. And, like, I know that sounds awful, and I know that, like, that's the point of this podcast, is for us to be like, let's talk. So
I knew the answer
we can figure out ways to, like, be on each other's level. There are just some things you can't be on the other person's level about, and that's okay. But what we have to be mindful of is that we aren't ever going to be on the same level, and that we have to be respectful that we're not going to be on the same level. Because a lot of my personal experience with the word, and, word being in songs and different things and stuff like that, like, from my perspective, from the black perspective, coming from the white perspective, getting that feedback, it usually is met with a lot of resistance. And truthfully, I'm not trying to, again, generalize anybody, but I think it's from a spiteful place. It's a place of like, well, because you told me I couldn't do it, now I'm going to do it. Right? And I've never...
Tell me I can't, I'll show you again.
Anyway. And whether they recognize that or whether, like, they self-reflect later on and went, man, that was kind of stupid. That's how it comes off in most cases. Like, other than right now, I've never sat down and had a mildly intellectual conversation about, like, what is the reason that you want to say it. And that was kind of like what that. So basically what it says is it goes, ask yourself why you want to say it. And I think that is huge. Why do you want to say it so bad? And most of the time, the answer is, well, because everybody else does. That's not a reason. That's not a legitimate reason at all. There's a lot of things that I would love to do because everybody else is doing it, but it's not the right thing to do. Right? So it's like you really got to take a step back as a white person and think to yourself, like, why are you getting so upset about this? Like, what stirs up so much emotion? Is it because you actually want to advocate for the word and you want to celebrate the word and you want to praise the word and you want to use that word to be inclusive in that community? Or is it because you're just mad that you can't say it? Right. Because it's something that you can't do and it's human nature that as soon as you're told you can't do it, then you want to find a way to do it. Right? And I made the joke earlier about, like, it's like parenting, right? Like, well, nobody gets the candy because you guys can't figure it out. And it's like, that doesn't solve anything, right? Well, fine. Or like you're like a little kid on the playground. Like, I want that toy. Well, I want that toy. Well, I'm going to break it. I'm going to throw it. Nobody gets that toy. It's like, it doesn't have to be a mine or yours. It's just it's respecting people's backgrounds and it's respecting people's cultures and it's respecting people's traditions and what they're trying to do as far as rewriting their history, right? I mean, that's essentially what that word is trying to rewrite that vernacular that was thrown on people in such an aggressive fashion and was used to belittle them for hundreds of years. And it's like, now you're mad at somebody because you can't bring that word back.
Right.
Like, you sound crazy. Like you said, when you really kind of think about it that way, like, you sound nuts. Like, you're really mad at a black person because you can't say a word that was oppressing them for so many years and really kind of still lingers over their head in a really negative way.
Right.
Because the minute you get upset, you can throw that word out at me at any point in time in an argument and I have nothing to combat that with. Right? There's no word. There's no word that I can equally say back to you that would elicit that same emotion. You will always and forever until the dawn of time as a white person be able to hold that word over any black person. Always. And you're upset because you don't get to pull that card. Right. You don't get to flex that privilege because that's kind of what it sounds like.
It's so like when you say, like, why do you want to say it? Like, honestly, I don't. Like, there's never been a time in my life when I'm like, oh, what's that word? Like, that's the one I want. Like,
yes.
It's never been like that. I think for most white people, and I'm going to make some assumptions here, it comes down to, like, you want to be equal, let's be equals. And it comes to that, like we've talked about before, like, oh, poof, slavery's gone. Oh, poof, like, segregation's gone. Like, we're equal. What more do you want? So it's like, why do you get this word and I don't? If you want to be the same person, we both get this word. And, like, I don't know if that makes sense so
far.
Does, but, like, yes. It's kind of like, it's not that I want to say it's not anything. It's that, we're all on the same page, we have access to the same words, and it's kind of like, well, we can talk about this someday too, like, it's not uncommon for white people to sit around and be like, well, black people are racist. Well, frankly, like, we're all racist to some extent. So, yeah. But so it's almost like one of those words that, like, now you guys get, and, like, well, you can't use it, white people, because you'll hurt us, and, like, oh, but you're being a baby, get over it. And we talk about this plenty to know how we feel about that.
Yeah.
But I think that's really where it comes from. And I think, like, back to, like, I didn't swear until I was, like, 23. Like, it was very, now I'm, I could sail on any ship. But I think, like, I knew at, like, 15, 16, like, I could swear. Like, if I wanted to say fuck, you know what, I could. Yeah. But I said fudge, because you know what?
Did, actually.
I did. I said fudge all the time.
Yeah, you did. I know.
But, like, honestly, at that point, it was like a sense of pride. Like, I don't have to swear to, like, get my point across.
Yeah.
But people knew what I was saying. Like, I was swearing.
It was implied.
But, so I think that's, like, the difference was, like, I could get to those words someday. Like, if I really needed to pull that out, I could. And this word, it's like, it feels like if I get to the point where I need to pull that word out in some conversation or argument, like, I've crossed a line of humanity that you can't come back from.
Yeah. No, I love that, though. Like, and as you were talking, I was just sitting there thinking, like, what a white privilege.
Honestly.
Right? Like, what a white privilege. Like, the fact that you can have that emotion about someone else's oppressed word. That you get the opportunity to sit across somebody and be like, well, you know what? We're equal now, so therefore, it's like, huh? Like, I can never do that to you. I never in any world will ever have that opportunity to do that, right? So I'm like, that's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it was interesting to hear you say that, because I'm like, yeah, that is literally white privilege.
No, I mean, that's like when I, like, at my simplistic of simplicities think about race, I go to, like, okay, then we should stop seeing color, we should stop celebrating black people, we should stop doing, like, just get rid of it. It just doesn't exist. We all know we can't do that, and for a plethora of reasons. But, like, this is kind of one of those, like, you know what? If you don't want to, like, be different, don't be different. You don't get the word.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no other, like, I have no other attachment to it other than that. Like, I don't need to say this word. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. And then, like, if you think about it, when you strip that back, like, that's such an ignorant way to think, too. Because it's like, you get to mandate what I get to use inside of a community from a word that came from your lineage. So you basically just are trying to take back the power in which you created in the first place.
I mean, I can take it back at any time. It's just a real dick move.
It is. It's awful. It's an awful thing to do. And it's like you have a group of people that are actively trying to turn that word around inside of their own community, because it does elicit those emotions, and then you're trying to now dictate and you're trying to police that word for people. And, like, then you throw around a bunch of buzzwords that happen to be equality and, like, this, then rights, and you basically just try to attach it onto something to make your point. But there's no point to be made. It's not your word to have. Like, you created this word. We, air quotes, embraced the word. And then we went, okay, we're going to try to make it better. And now you're mad about that?
Yeah.
Like, you're upset because we're trying to use the word in a more positive fashion within each other, that now you're mad that you can't say it.
So let me ask you, do we need the word?
Yeah.
Like, can it go away?
No, I think we need the word, because the word...
I think this word will always have... There will always be an issue about this word.
Yeah, I mean, as long as there's people on the planet, there always will be issues about everything.
Well, okay. This word, this problem. This is the only one I can address today.
No,
but
we need the word.
Could we live without it?
No, because I think it would take away the identity of a lot of people. That word's tied to the deep meanings of a lot of people and where they've come from and how far they've gotten. And that's what I think white people will never understand. That word isn't just the N word. We're not just like, you can't have this word. That word means a lot in so many different ways. And the fact that you're trying to latch on to yet another thing, that's people's history. That's people's ability to look back on where they've come from and the possibilities of what they can be, and to, in a weird way, rejoice and celebrate what little looks like fleeting moments of happiness that most people have these days. So leave it alone. That word means, like you said earlier, it means nothing to you.
Yeah.
Zero things.
If anything, I should be ashamed of it.
Yeah. Yeah, literally. Like, you should, as a white person, you should be running from the word. Like, you should be asking me, not because you hear me saying it, not to say it, but just like, hey man, like, I'm still dealing with what that word means to me. Can you, like, keep it down? I would respect that more.
Yeah.
Right? If you're just like, if that was a personal journey for you and you were telling me, like, yeah, like, that word, I'm like, my ancestors, dude, I'm still trying to, like, wrap my head around that, I would respect that more. I'm like, okay, cool. I will not say that word around you. But that's a personal connection. That's a human connection that I made to you. Not, well, if I can't say it, well, you shouldn't say it around me then. What? Like, come on. Right? It's a childish debate. It's a childish debate that we turned and we politicized and we've tried to draw lines and we separate people, and the word is doing exactly what the word did back when it was created. It is dividing people. Don't let it divide people.
Right.
Let it be. Let people take the word that was intended to divide and try to rejoice and build their community. Period. Because guess what? Not a single black person is over there trying to stop you from building and rejoicing and celebrating whatever it is. People are Irish and all this, and like, no one comes in and steals Irish words from people and is like,
that's because nobody can understand them.
That's true. But you know what I mean? Like, you gotta think about it in that regard, right? Like, it seems like a word that, like, when you look at it on a surface level, you're like, what's the big deal? There's a lot to that word, and it has formed and shaped that entire community. So let that word stay in that community.
Do you ever see a world where anybody could use it?
No. And I'm not saying that because I'm like, oh, that's our word.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that people, and by people I am going to generalize here, white people will ever be able to respect it the way that they need to respect it. Mm-hmm. There will be, I'm not saying all of them, there's always going to be that one guy, right, that just messes it up for everybody. And that's why I don't think that the word, we might get to a place where we're a little bit more comfortable, but there's always going to be that group of people that you don't mean well when those words come off your lips. And that's the problem now. You're not rejoicing. It goes right back to, you're not celebrating. There's no unity, right? You're just trying to use the word because someone told you not to.
That's what I was trying to think, like, how many hundreds of years from now, when I was reading about, like, all the, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and, like, how that has, like, a context that, like, we've long since forgotten.
Catch a ninja by its toe.
Speaking of the N-word, actually.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to think, like, okay, 200 years from now, it's a word of, like, pure, affection. Could that ever happen? And
No.
I think there's a lot of hundreds of years between now and then if that can happen. But
yeah, I don't think it'll ever happen, and I'm not saying that to be, like, the little, like, negative Nancy, which that probably has some really bad meaning, too, somewhere. But, no.
She was a negative lady.
She was, okay. No. Yeah, it's just not, there's just some things that just aren't meant to be shared. Because you just won't ever relate. Like, I won't ever know what it's like to have an ancestor that went through the Holocaust. I won't ever know what derogatory language or verbiage or anything that ever happened to them. I mean, like, it's, like, the numbers and the tattoos, that's a real strong response to a lot of people. Could you imagine if I went into the tattoo shop and asked for, like, the same marking? You know how many people I'd piss off? Well, you got, it's freedom of whatever. I can put that on my body if I want to.
Right.
Yeah, but you didn't experience that. And that's a branding, and that's something that's personal to you and your family and what you went through, right? And that is a very strong emotion, and it's insulting for anybody to even try because they can, because it's freedom of speech or expression to then go do that same thing. That's exactly what you're doing in the Black community.
Right. Okay, last very serious question.
Right.
I'm very serious about the music.
Okay.
Are we allowed to sing along?
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest. Actually, no, I want to know your question.
Okay.
I want to know your answer.
Okay.
Your question me.
I think this is a person by person situation. I honestly, I don't know. That's a tough question to ask. I don't really have the answer. I wish I did, and everybody's probably like, this is really anticlimactic. For me,
honestly, all white people are just waiting to take notes right now.
Yeah, they're about to literally like freaking at the 45-minute mark. She said it was okay. No, I think for me, it's like everything that you decide to dabble in with life, like take it at your own precaution. Be mindful of the people around you, but I can't tell you not to do it, right? Like, you're an adult, you make your own decisions. I implore you to ask yourself, why? Like, why do you feel like you need to do it? Because if you think about it, the reason it's used in that song is because, again, it's probably a Black person, right? Talking about a situation, right? Talking about probably another Black person. And again, if you think about where it came from and the point of it, it's not in there to just be in there. It's an expression. It's an expression of them. It's in terms of whatever, in regards to whatever they're talking about with that person. So it's like, if you want to do it in your car on your own, I can't tell you not to do it. But I would highly recommend to not do it in a massive group of people without having that conversation with the people around you. Because I do know some people that don't care. There are some people that are like, oh, well, it's in the song, like, it's a lyric in the song, sing the song. And then there's some people that are like, absolutely not. So I don't want to speak for anybody, but me personally, I don't actually even really sing it in the song. So I don't really want to be like, yeah, go ahead, because really a lot of times I don't. I'll find like you heard me say ninja earlier, right? Like, I'll do stuff like that, or like, the Gold Digger song. Kanye West. You know, like broke, and everybody does like and they look at you like, are you gonna say it? Like, like, yeah. So I don't use it. It's not a part of my vocabulary. So from my personal, I would say no. But what you do behind closed doors is what you do behind closed doors. If you want to sing it in your car when no one's around, that's on you.
I had one song that I didn't understand any of the words. They were all sounds. And I finally learned that I had been singing it for a while.
That's funny.
So, but that's like most hip-hoppy rap songs for me. So now I learned. But I think like back as a kid, like there was a Backstreet Boys song that says, like, are you sexual? And as a kid, like we used to like we'd be like, are you? And then we'd like, turn the volume back up because like I knew I shouldn't like sex, you know, whatever. Yeah. That's right. So that's just like I just imagining all these like white people in their car, like, so you, okay. Like,
no, you're too kind. Like you're just most of them are like, and they say it like extra loud, and it's like, oh god, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a big proponent of other people using it because if I think about it, if the roles were reversed and there was a word that did like whatever in some way oppress you culturally, and you were like, maybe not, I would be mindful to never use it. Right. Because I feel like if you're comfortable doing it on your own, then like you're just opening up too many doors to like accidentally do it later on. And then again, it's like remind yourself like, why? Why do you want to do it so bad? And yeah, I understand it's a song, and then you're gonna get people who are probably gonna blow up the comments with, your songs don't. And it's like, that's not the point. Like, it's a black artist, that is their right to use those words. And the same thing with like, I don't know, if Eminem wanted to make a song, and you guys like to hold on to the word cracker so bad, like, okay, if you told me not to say that word and you gave me a reason not to say it, I'm not gonna say it. And actually, I won't say that word anyway.
Girl, if you use the word cracker, you better have some cheese. Like, that's all I gotta say. That's my connection with that.
Right? But, like, seriously. And, I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of rambling on, but it's a tough word to really talk about because, like I said, the meaning is so different. And it's so personal to everybody, and they have their own connection to it, so I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would highly recommend you just leave it alone. That's like my all-encompassing answer, is just leave the word alone. Because it just doesn't, you don't need it.
I think, like, it's just pure white privilege speaking. There's not a lot of things we can't have.
Yes.
We can't have this one.
Yes.
That's a weird feeling.
That's why you want it so bad.
I actually don't give a shit. But,
right?
But collectively speaking, yes.
I
think that's it. We can have just about anything we want.
Yeah.
And this is weird to us.
Yeah. And then you find all the justifications to try to make it a little bit okay. And again, it goes back to why.
Right.
Just ask yourself why.
Well, that's why we've talked about in other episodes, like, just shut up and listen. Like, if you actually go and read, like, where it came from, what it meant, like, honestly, it's an ugly word.
It is.
And, like, that's where I almost try to go, like, why do you guys even want it? Like, that's why I said, can we live without it? Like, I know you guys are trying to do some, like, warm fuzzy with it. It's going to be a weird word for me forever. So
I mean, it kind of should be. I feel like it should kind of be a weird word for everybody. Right. Because I think also, too, it, like, you know, it's, some people say, well, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I don't always agree with that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and not just in this word, just in general, because there's things that you can get away saying to me exactly the same that other people can't. Exactly the same way. And it doesn't work. And that's how my take on it when it's used in the community. Because some people ask and they're like, well, why did they try to turn that word around? And it's like, you have to think about the times, right? Black people didn't have a lot. So what they did have is what they had. In most cases, it wasn't possessions, right? There wasn't a whole lot of land and a whole lot of this, and there wasn't like houses, and there wasn't. So it's like words, stories, songs. These are the things that they had. And the ones that were educated enough to have a bigger vocabulary were, right, and we kind of pass it through time, and as whatever, people got more and more educated, cool. That's why I think probably the word has maybe kind of started to, I don't want to say phase itself out, but isn't every other sentence, right? Yeah. Like it used to be. But you also have to look at it from that perspective of, like, black community didn't have much. So that was kind of our way of, like, taking back something, right? So it's like, just let us have it. It's fine. Like, it's okay. You're gonna live. And those who want to say it. And those who don't, in the black community, don't.
Honestly, as a white person, if you want to say it, just be ready for the consequences.
Right? But that's anything in life. Like,
right.
Be ready. Shoot.
N-word at your own risk.
You're so cheesy.
Oh God, I should have taken that nap today. I have no other questions.
Okay. How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Coming in and now leaving, hearing my perspective on things. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's still I think the mystery for me will always be why do we need it? Period.
Sure. And you mean as far as all races?
Yeah, just if it's an ugly word, leave it there. Can we come up with another word that's a loving, embracing, and it embraces all races? Mm-hmm. Because as soon as you have one thing that a person can or cannot say, there's always going to be this, well, I want it too, whether or not you actually want it.
Yeah.
The fact that this has a history and a negative history that black people can now almost say well, you can't have this because did this to us. Mm-hmm. It kind of feels like you'll always have that to hang over our heads.
Yeah. And
frankly, it wasn't me. It wasn't even most of my lineage as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, it feels like it will always leave me in a place to apologize for something it didn't do.
That's an interesting point. And really, truthfully, I think until the day you die, you will always be in that place.
Yeah.
And about many things.
Yeah. And that's why I feel there's no good answer. I didn't come out to this episode we have to solve I can say it or here's exactly why not. But I just hope this gives some perspective as to here's what your community is trying to do with it. Mm-hmm. I think I've been pretty honest in why I think we have an interest in it and why we have some, not even interest in it, just curiosity around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really comes down to it's something we can't have. Everybody wants what they can't have. And it does give you some power that we'll never have because we will never have been the oppressed. Mm-hmm. And it's just in a lot of songs. So
well, really, it's interesting. I feel like I can argue kind of the other way against that too, because really none of the music I listen to is not in it. I don't hear the word very often. Truthfully.
My husband has a different taste in music.
Yeah, and that's I know he does. But yeah, so it just depends on what side of that coin you know what you're into, what you're not into. A lot of my music I don't really listen to. I listen to a lot of R&B and things like that, and it's that. That's not that verbiage doesn't necessarily fit that narrative of that type of music. So it just kind of depends. But that's interesting. Yeah, I mean that's really interesting point of always apologizing. But I'm yeah, you're gonna be doing that for a long time.
Well, yeah, it's just I think if anything, it's just learning to live with this discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
How do we just and you always are good at saying just talk about it. Bring it up to the people you're around.
Yeah,
it's not a word I ever want to say or need to say, but when I am around it and hear it from black people, even that makes me uncomfortable, but then I feel I can't take it away because it's your word. No. But I feel you're telling me that I have that safe space to go, you know what? I respect and appreciate where that word came from. Mm-hmm. I respect and appreciate the source of a lot of words. I don't use a lot of words.
Right.
Can we leave that one to the side?
Yeah, and I think that and I try to do this, right? I try to call out both sides, and I think that again, as people of color and black people in particular in this situation, we need to still be respectful of those around us, because I know that there are some black people that they're very much so no, I can say whatever I want when I want. It's the human part of you. That's not a good answer, right? Yes, you're 100% correct, but you're no better than the people that are yelling at you saying that they can't say it because it's freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. It's you don't get to tell me no and then turn around and do exactly the thing you just told me no about, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to be mindful of that too, that if you are in a situation, and again, if it comes from a genuine place, and you're not just being oh, it makes me uncomfortable, because people will do that to try to get you, right? And by uncomfortable means, I just can't say it, then no, I'm not gonna, if I was that person, I'm not gonna stop saying it either, sorry, you're uncomfortable, it's kind of that whole, okay, but, yeah, if if I did use that word, you know, with my family or whatever, and you were around and you're just like, hey, like, I'm just, that word just rubs me the wrong way because I know the story of it, then, like, I would be more conscious to not necessarily say it. I'm not saying that I wouldn't say it all the time, but then you also got to look at, like, your scenario, like, your situation, and, like, where are you? Mm-hmm. Because if you are in their community, you really also, too, got to look at the other side of it. You can't come in and dictate how they operate inside their own space. Nor what that's like me coming in your house and telling you how to talk to your husband. Right? Like, you guys have a lingo and a dialect and the way that you guys communicate. Me being like, this makes me uncomfortable. You need to stop right now. Like, right? Yeah. You gotta kind of adapt and get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. Right? Because there's gonna be times.
I think a lot more people need to learn that lesson.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable? Yeah.
Universally, we could all use some help with that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. You got anything else then, or?
No, I think that was it. I think it's good. I've never talked it out with a black person.
Well, I'm honored.
It is. I mean, you're welcome. Thank you. I don't know the right response to that. Well, with that, we're honored that you joined us again today.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
I feel really cheesy about my cheesy things.
Why? It's your thing.
Okay, thanks for joining us today, guys. For another, I was too happy last time. For another episode of Black and White Thoughts, where we talked about the N-word. And I'm still not going to say it.
Yeah.
And neither is Kitchen for the most part.
Yeah.
I've never heard you say it.
I don't think I've ever said it. Or at least it didn't stick around long enough for me to hold on to it.
Give it away too fast?
Yeah. Poof, God.
Alright, thanks guys for joining. KJ's gonna do our social media stuff now.
Yeah, buddy. We got a website. You probably already know. Go visit it. blackwhitethoughts.com. You can find all of our episodes, latest episodes, information about us. We got merch. We've got blogs. We got all of the goodies. All one-stop shop for you. So please head over there. Tell your friends about it. Let us know. You can actually even reach out to us on there too. You can shoot us an email if you got some topics, things of that nature. We appreciate you. Love you. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.